basically, tie and dye are two English words put together. Tie and dye. The tying here does the resist or prevention. And then the dyeing here is changing of the original color of what you are using. What are we using here? We are using what we call fabric. Now, the whole process of tie and dye is fabric manipulation. The fabric here we are going to use is a white plain cotton fabric known as mercerized cotton. Mercerized in the sense that we know cotton is a plant-based fabric. It goes through a process, and then the final process is mercerization. Now, mercerization, the fabric has gone through so many stretch additions and subtractions, so that whatever we do to the fabric, it comes out perfect. Now, there are some things that you need. People confuse tie and dye with batik. Batik is a different technique altogether, and tie and dye is a different technique altogether. Like I told you from the beginning, tie and dye is simply tying and dyeing. So that is what we are going to do. When you look on my table, I have lots of things. These are the things that you will need for your tie and dye. Now, when you go to the markets, especially those based in Kumasi, when you go to Edum, the Central Market, they have various fabrics that they sell. Some are polyester. When you ask and they say polyester, you can't do tie and dye with polyester. When they tell you it's cotton, ask them the kind of cotton that it is. We have grey baft. Grey baft is stiff and has size on the surface. So it's difficult dyeing grey baft. But I'm not saying you can't dye grey baft. You can dye grey baft, but you have to wash grey baft in its raw state before you use it for tie and dye, which will be too much work for you. And then we have calico. Calico is what our mothers use in tying babies and wrapping babies and those sort. That one can also be used, but it's also a little stiff. But with mercerized cotton, as you see, it looks just like calico. It's softer and more relaxed. This has been treated. This is what we use for tie and dye. Right? It's cotton all right. Oh, okay. So when you go to the Central Market, you buy your fabric, which is your mercerized cotton, or you go to Edum, you get mercerized cotton. Those in Accra, when you go to Makola, you get mercerized cotton to buy, or anybody who sells fabrics, you just ask for mercerized cotton and they'll give it to you. When it comes to the dyes come in different forms. We have so many kinds of dyes, but every dye has its own instructions. What I'm going to use here for this demonstration is known as VAT or VAT dyes. They are the commonest. When you go to the market, you get VAT dye to buy. When you go to Tema, they are in big quantities. But every dye has its own fixative. You can't just take VAT dye and add common salt or kitchen salt to it and say that you have fixed it. When our mothers buy their fabrics and they wash the fabric and the color is running out, they just put salt on it to stop the color from coming out. So it's assumed that you can just add salt to it and it will work. No. VAT dye comes with a chemical known as caustic soda. I hope you all know caustic soda. The science students amongst you know caustic soda and how caustic soda behaves. The caustic soda opens up the pores of the fabric. When the fabric is new, the pores are intact. So the caustic soda will open up the pores for you, ready for the fabric to receive the dye that you put in the water. And then your dye, and then there's this other chemical known as sodium hydrosulfide. This sodium hydrosulfide does the fixing of the dye. So if you add caustic soda and dye and you don't add the sodium hydrosulfide, after your dyeing, when you wash, the color will just run out of the fabric. So you need all three together to work. There are other dyes like indenturing dyes, acid dyes, sodium dyes, so many other dyes. All of them have their own chemicals that you can use in fixing. So you can um, trade chemicals when you buy your dye. Anytime you buy your dye, ask the one who is selling what chemicals go with the dye that you have bought. Now, this dye works within 40 minutes. That is the maximum. Within 40 minutes, whatever you are doing has to be completed. There are other dyes that can take about 6 hours. There are other dyes that can take overnight. But this dye works within 40 minutes. Now, because of that, because of the chemicals that we use and all the various things that we use, you need to protect yourself. Now, in these times of COVID, everybody is wearing a nose mask. We have the nose masks that we use for dyeing. The chemical known as the hydrosulfite. When you go to town, they will tell you hydros. Hydros is the same as sodium hydrosulfite. This chemical, if you want to know the potency of hydrosulfite, it has a bad smell. It smells a lot. When you buy it and it does not smell, it means the potency is weak. When you use it, it will not work like the smelly one. So when it smells, that is the best. Now, you need hand gloves. These are the rubber gloves that we use for dyeing. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to use the disposable ones. The big ones, sometimes they are not too, it's not too fast for you to use. And then you need a protective clothing to cover yourself, because when the dye splashes on you, the color stays. It gets stuck. So you need something to protect yourself. Now, we have leather aprons that you can wear, or rubber aprons that you can wear. But I prefer to wear this big gown because it covers my whole system. So when the dye gets into this is polyester. So when the dye gets into this, it does not get stuck. It just splashes on it. Though it will dry after a few washing, the color will go back. If it's cotton, then it will get stuck because of the hydrosulfide that you put in the dye bath. Now, when you prepare your dye, ready to receive the fabric, we call that solution standing there a bath. Bath, just like you prepare water and soap and you sit in it and you wash yourself. So we call it a dye bath. Now, I've talked about what we are going to do. Now, on the table are tools and materials that we use in tie and dye. The first thing that you have to think about is your mercerized cotton. That is what you are going to dye. So this is the first thing. You have to think about your mercerized cotton. Then we come to the dye that you are going to use. We are going, like I said, we are going to use VAT dyes. Then you think about how to protect your hands and your body. So I'm already wearing my overall or my